Have you ever looked at someone effortlessly pick like a massive weight off the floor and wondered, what witchcraft is that?
Right. Or maybe you've tried it yourself.
Exactly. Or maybe you've tried the deadlift yourself and found it surprisingly tricky. Well, today you're in for a treat because we're taking a deep dive into the world of the deadlift.
And it's not just about raw strength, is it?
Not at all. It's a foundational movement with honestly surprising complexity and profound benefits for your entire body.
Mm-hmm.
For this deep dive, we've pulled together an incredible resource, a really comprehensive guide on how to deadlift. It's authored by an experienced coach and, importantly, a drug-free powerlifter.
Yeah, and this isn't just theory. This guy knows his stuff.
Totally. He spent 12 years training, 9 years coaching. He's personally deadlifted 775 pounds, which is just, wow, over 3 times his body weight.
Incredible.
And he's coached lifters from absolute beginners right up to people pulling over 600 pounds. Plus, he has this deep understanding of biomechanics.
Which makes the info really robust, really practical.
Exactly. So our mission for you today is basically to give you a shortcut. A shortcut to understanding the critical mechanics, the undeniable benefits, and all those nuanced techniques of the deadlift.
Right. The goal is to equip you, the listener.
Yeah, equip you with the knowledge to either dramatically improve your own lift or, simply become incredibly well-informed about this genuinely fascinating movement.
Okay.
So let's unpack this right from the start. Why should you care about the deadlift?
Well, look, if you're tuning into this deep dive, you probably already have a sense that the deadlift is pretty awesome.
Yeah, fair point.
But just to be explicit, it's pretty much unparalleled for adding muscle to your posterior chain.
Yeah.
We're talking everything from your traps, those upper back muscles,
All the way down.
all the way down to your hamstrings. Yeah, it drastically increases athleticism, and it can even decrease your injury risk on the field or court.
That's huge.
And for building sheer head-to-toe strength, it's truly right up there with squats. Push press is close behind, but deadlifts and squats are kind of the kings. So our focus here isn't just saying, hey, it's awesome. It's about arming you with the specific techniques to lift heavier, build a dense, muscular back, and crucially, do it safely.
Right. And to really understand how to do that heavier and safer, we kind of need to touch on some very basic physics. It underpins everything.
Absolutely.
Don't worry, we're not going deep into equations, promise. Just the fundamental concepts. We need to talk about 2 foundational terms, force and moment.
Okay.
So force is pretty straightforward. It's a push or a pull, like gravity pulling a 300-kilogram bar downwards. That's a force, 2,940 newtons, technically.
Your muscles contracting, they create linear force too.
Exactly. But then there's moment. What is that, and why does it actually matter for lifting?
Okay, so think of moment as like rotational leverage. It's how much turning power a force has around a joint, basically.
Like using a wrench.
Precisely. We calculate it as force times the perpendicular distance from the axis of rotation of the joint. The bigger that distance, that lever arm.
The harder your muscles have to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The harder they have to work to counteract that turning force. Like you said, loosening a stubborn bolt, you grab a long wrench, not a short one, for more leverage. That's moment.
Got it.
So when that heavy barbell is in your hands, it's creating these external flexor moments at your hips, knees, and all along your spine. It's basically trying to bend you forward.
And your muscles fight back.
Right. Your muscles produce internal extensor moments to pull you upright. And this brings us to a really crucial insight. You can't change where your muscles attach to your bones, right?
Theo, born with those.
And those attachment points are huge for leverage. A tiny difference, like literally centimeters in where, say, your patellar tendon attaches can mean your quad has to work like 50% harder than someone else's just to achieve the same pulling power at the knee.
Wow, 50%. That's massive.
It is. So since you can't change your anatomy, your only control is really increasing your muscular force, either by getting stronger, building more muscle,
Or getting better technique.
or by optimizing your skill through technique.
Yeah.
Exactly. This basic understanding of leverage and force, it's the bedrock. It informs everything we're about to talk about.
That makes so much sense. It really is all about making your body as efficient a lever as possible. Okay, so let's quickly look at the anatomy then, not like a textbook class.
Definitely not.
More like a practical guide. What bones, joints, and muscles are really the most critical players in making those levers work, and why?
Okay, let's focus on what really matters for the deadlift.
Oh.
Your spine, obviously crucial. It needs to stay rigid, especially your lower back, against those bending forces.
Right, resisting that flexion.
Exactly. Your pelvis, it's this fused structure. It houses your hip sockets. And the way those sockets are oriented, that angle, can actually influence whether you're naturally better suited for, say, a wider sumo stance or a narrower conventional one.
Interesting. So anatomy plays a role in stance choice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Then you've got your femur eye bone and your lower leg bones, the tibia and fibula. They form the actual levers for your legs
Okay.
and the joints connecting them, right? The hip joint, it's a ball and socket, moves in all directions. Individual hip anatomy really affects your comfortable range of motion.
Makes sense.
The knee is mostly a hinge. Your kneecap, the patella, helps your quads get better leverage over that hinge.
Okay. Bones, joints. Now the muscles doing the work.
Right, the engines.
Yeah.
Your spinal erectors, the name says it all. They extend your spine, keep it rigid.
The back muscles.
Yep. Your core, it's not just abs, right? It's this whole system of torso muscles. They brace, create intra-abdominal pressure, like an internal weight belt, protects the spine.
Crucial for safety.
Absolutely. Then the gluteus maximus, your biggest, strongest hip extensor.
The powerhouse.
Pretty much. Your hamstrings, those three muscles at the back of your thigh, also powerfully extend your hip, but they also bend your knee. That's important.
Okay, glutes and hamstrings, the usual suspects for hip extension, but you mentioned there's like a secret weapon.
Yeah, the adductor magnus. People totally overlook it.
I definitely have.
It's often called the fourth hamstring because it starts near the same place on your pelvis. But here's the key difference. It doesn't cross the knee joint.
Ah, okay.
And some research even suggests it might produce a bigger hip extensor moment than the glutes and hamstrings combined at the bottom of a squat.
Whoa, really? Combined?
Yeah, it's potentially huge. And mechanically, it's often in a really advantageous position in the deadlift, a massive, often overlooked contributor.
Mind blown. Okay, who else?
Then you have the quadriceps, primarily knee extensors, though one part does flex the hip too. And finally, the lats. Now, they aren't prime movers for extending your spine.
Right, not back extensors directly.
Correct, but they play this really meaningful role in repositioning the bar, pulling it closer, which actually decreases the demands on your hips and your spinal erectors. We'll get more into that.
Okay, fascinating. So all these parts, bones, muscles, joints, they're the machinery carrying out those physics principles, the leverage we talked about.
Yeah.
Which leads us perfectly into biomechanics, understanding the specific demands of the deadlift and, crucially, how they differ between, say, conventional and sumo.
Right, so just to simplify how we look at movement, we talk about planes. Sagittal is front to back, like bending forward. Frontal is side to side. Transverse is rotation.
Okay.
And what's really important is that hip and knee flexion extension. We define those relative to the femur, the thigh bone, not the torso. This avoids errors if you just look from the side.
Gotcha. Makes sense for 3D movement.
Yep. So in any deadlift, you're basically overcoming four main challenges. The force trying to bend your spine forward.
Spinal flexor moment.
Right. The force trying to bend your hips.
Hip flexor moment.
The force trying to bend your knees.
Knee flexor moment.
And of course, just holding onto the bar. Grip.
The 4 horsemen of the deadlift apocalypse.
Something like that. Now, for the conventional deadlift, the demands on your quads for knee extension, surprisingly low.
Really? I thought legs were doing tons of work.
They are, but mostly hips and back. Your hamstrings actually often provide more resistance against your quads than the barbell itself does at the knee.
Okay.
The hip extension demands, though, high, especially right at the start. And this is influenced by where your hips are relative to the bar.
Which depends on your build, like limb lengths.
Exactly. Longer femurs, shorter arms, hips start further back, makes it harder. Those hip demands peak in the first third of the lift.
Okay.
And crucially, the demands on your spine, that spinal flexor moment, it increases the more your torso leans forward and the longer your torso is. This is the main reason conventional is generally harder on the back than sumo.
Okay, that tracks. Now, sumo, here's that common idea I hear all the time. Sumo is easier on the hips. True or false?
Great question, and mostly false, or at least misleading.
Bust that myth.
When we look at it in 3D, relative to the femur, the hip extension demands are actually pretty similar to conventional.
So what's going on then? Why does it feel different?
Because in sumo, you're driving your feet outwards, right? Creating lateral forces. This lets your quads help at the hip extensors.
The quads get more involved in hip extension?
They assist, yeah. Which slightly decreases the direct hip demands, but significantly increases the knee extension demands. It kind of balances out the hip part.
So quads work harder in sumo?
Much harder than in conventional, though they're still usually not the limiting factor. So the real summary, both styles, similar hip demands, conventional, harder on the back, Sumo, much harder on the quads.
And heavier weights make everything harder.
Naturally.
Okay, so we've broken down the forces, the body's machinery. Now, the practical part. How do we put all these complex bits into, well, perfect motion when we actually lift?
Right. Technique time.
This brings us to the importance of technique. Now, deadlift is often called the least technical of the big three: power lift, squat, bench, deadlift.
Which is maybe debatable, but yeah.
But paying attention to your setup and execution is still absolutely crucial, both for performance, lifting more weight, and obviously for safety.
Couldn't agree more. And a quick note here. It's actually incredibly useful for you listening to get proficient in both conventional and sumo. They really complement each other in training.
Good point. Okay, stance first. How do you find your conventional stance?
A really good starting point is the vertical jump heuristic. Basically, where do your feet naturally go when you jump straight up?
Okay, makes sense. Usually about hip width.
Usually, yeah. Great for producing vertical force. From there, experiment. Slightly wider, slightly narrower. Some bigger lifters might go wider just to make room for their gut.
Practicalities. What about toe angle?
Some people find turning toes out slightly helps break the bar off the floor. Others find straighter toes help with lockout. Might be related to how your glutes contract at different lengths. Experimentation is key.
Okay. And sumo stance. Obviously wider.
Much wider, yeah. Feet outside the hands. A good heuristic is to set up so your shins look roughly perpendicular vertical when viewed from the front or back, once you drive your knees out over your feet. Again, experiment from there. Your stance width pretty much dictates your toe angle. Generally, you want your knees tracking in line with your first or second toe.
Got it. Next up, gripping the bar. How wide?
Simple rule. Go as narrow as you possibly can without your knees caving in or your arms rubbing annoyingly against your thighs. Too wide just increases the distance you have to pull.
Right, longer range of motion.
Exactly. For sumo, this usually means hands pretty much directly below your shoulders. Maximizes your effective arm length.
Makes sense. And the types of grip. Double overhand? Probably not for heavy weights.
Generally, no. It's usually the weakest link. Fine for beginners or very lightweights, but the bar will tend to roll out of your hands.
Okay, so most people use
the mixed grip. One hand over, one under. It's the most popular in powerlifting because it creates opposing forces that stop the bar from rolling.
Any common mistakes with mixed grip?
Yeah, two big ones.
Yeah.
Gripping the bar too deep in your palm leads to torn calluses. And pulling with your arms, especially trying to curl with that underhand arm, that's how you risk biceps tears.
Ouch. What about muscle imbalances from the mixed grip?
Honestly, the source says don't worry too much, unless the deadlift is literally your only back training. If you're concerned, just alternate which hand is over and which is under from set to set or week to week.
Okay. And a pro tip from the source.
Yeah, a good one. Always grip harder than you think you need to, like crush the bar.
Really? Why?
It's weird, but it often makes the lift feel easier.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something called muscle irradiation, tensing.
Yeah.
One muscle helps activate others nearby.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's just psychological. Either way, grip hard.
Interesting. What about hook grip? Looks painful.
It is initially. The hook grip is where you wrap your fingers around your thumb, pinning your thumb between your fingers and the bar.
Used a lot in weightlifting, right?
Universal there, yeah.
Yeah.
And gaining popularity in powerlifting. For many, it's actually stronger than mixed grip, and it completely removes that biceps tear risk and asymmetry issue.
Downside, apart from the pain.
The pain is the main one, haha. Your thumb nerves kind of deaden over time, though. Also, if you have really short fingers or small hands, it might just not work well.
Okay. And straps. We'll talk more later.
Yeah, we'll cover when to use them. But basically, they work like a mixed grip by preventing barrel roll, just without relying on your hand strength.
Gotcha. Okay, breathing and bracing. This sounds important.
Hugely important. The key is a deep diaphragmatic breath. Breathe into your stomach, not your chest. Feel your belly expand outwards.
Not a shallow chest breath.
Exactly. Then you perform the Valsalva maneuver. You hold that deep breath, and you brace your entire core hard, like someone's about to punch you in the gut or, well, you know.
Yeah. Creates pressure.
Enormous pressure inside your abdomen. Intra-abdominal pressure. It acts like an internal weight belt, supports your spine, makes the lift safer and stronger.
And you hold that breath.
Throughout the entire lift, from bottom to top. You can exhale at the top or reset your breath between reps if doing multiples.
And the bracing cue. Brace for a punch.
That's a great one. Tense like you're about to get punched. It takes practice to get good at generating that tension. If you struggle breathing deep while bent over, take the breath standing up, brace, then quickly get down into position. Works for both conventional and sumo.
Okay, breathing and bracing locked in. Now, setting up, getting into that starting position consistently. The source mentions several ways for conventional, right? Says personal preference is key.
That's right. There are a few main strategies. The most common and generally recommended are, first, the hamstring tension approach. You set your hips a bit higher.
On the stretch.
Exactly. Feeling that stretch like you're pulling back a bowstring in your hamstrings. This tends to work well for people with longer limbs who are more, hinge dominant.
Okay. What's the second main one?
The compress the spring method. Here, you start with your hips a bit lower, feeling like your legs are coiled springs, ready to explode upwards.
Better for shorter limbs, more quad-dominant people.
Generally, yeah. And the third common way is to just sort of rock your hips back into position. Maybe less dynamic tension initially, but can be very consistent for some people.
Okay. And sumo setup. Fewer options.
Yeah, usually simpler.
Hmm?
Mimicking those first two, the hamstring tension or compress the spring ideas, tends to work best. Fewer moving parts to coordinate.
And a key cue for sumo.
A really crucial one. Actively try to rip the floor in half between your feet. Imagine an earthquake fault line opening up right there.
Creates tension outward.
Tremendous outward tension in the hips and quads. And you want to maintain that tension throughout the entire pull.
Right. This leads perfectly to my next point, a common pitfall I see all the time and definitely done myself, jerking the bar off the floor.
Yes, the dreaded jerk.
Your hips shoot up first, back rounds immediately, form goes out the window. How do we stop that?
Instead of jerking, the key is pulling the slack out, or pulling tension into your body before the bar even leaves the floor.
So engage everything first.
Exactly. You gradually pull harder and harder until you feel the bar get heavy in your hands, like it's just about to lift. Then you initiate the drive.
And those setup strategies help with this.
They do. Both compress the spring and pull back the bowstring are designed to help you build that tension before you start the main pull. Experienced lifters might look like they jerk it.
But they're just creating tension instantly.
Precisely. They've mastered that instant tension. Newer lifters really need to practice that gradual buildup. It's probably the single biggest thing to prevent hips shooting up and backs rounding early.
Makes sense. Okay, another critical piece. Bar position and balance. Where should the bar be?
Ideally, the bar should track straight up, remaining directly over your midfoot throughout the entire lift. Your body and the bar act as a counterbalance system.
And if your balance is off, weight too far back.
If your weight's too far back on your heels, it's hard to drive your shoulders back effectively at the top if it's too far forward over your toes. Yeah, you'll delay your hip drive, your back might round to compensate. Plus, actively thinking about balance takes focus away from just producing maximum force.
So the goal is effortless balance, second nature.
Exactly. So you can just focus on pulling hard.
Okay, if someone's struggling with that midfoot balance, any quick drills they can try, like right now in their next session.
Absolutely. A really simple one is the brief isometric hold. Lift the bar just an inch, maybe two, off the floor. Hold it there for a couple of seconds.
And feel the balance.
Yeah, feel where your weight is.
Sure.
Adjust your body position slightly until you feel perfectly balanced over your midfoot. Then put it down, reset, and do it again. Great for warm-ups.
Nice. Any others?
You could try putting small plates, like 2.5 pounders, under your midfoot. If your weight shifts forward or back, you'll feel the pressure change on the edge of the plate. Gives you tactile feedback.
Clever.
And pause deadlifts are always great. Pause just off the floor, pause at the knee, really helps ingrain that proper groove and balance.
Okay, great tips. Let's circle back to the lats. We mentioned them earlier, but I've definitely heard people say, oh, the lats don't do much in deadlifts, maybe just stabilization. What's the real story?
Yeah, it's a common misconception, and understanding their real role is actually quite important. You're right, they are not prime movers for extending your spine. They don't actively pull your back straight.
Okay, so what do they do?
Their main role is to help reposition the bar, and by doing so, decrease the demands on your actual hip and spinal extensors.
How? By pulling the bar closer.
Exactly. By engaging your lats, think pulling your shoulder blades down and back slightly, extending your shoulders relative to the bar. You pull the bar closer to your body's center of gravity. This slightly shortens the moment arms at the hips and lumbar spine.
How much difference does it make there?
Maybe around 3–5% reduction in demand at the hips and lumbar spine, which is something, but not game-changing.
Okay, so where's the big win?
The big win is in your thoracic spine, your upper back, because the lats attach up there. Pulling the bar in has a much larger relative effect on the leverage at, say, T9 or T10. It can reduce the extension demands there by up to 20%.
Wow, 20%. That's huge for the upper back.
It really is. Think about it. Your hips are far from the bar. So moving the bar an inch closer makes a small absolute difference. But for your upper back, which is much closer horizontally to the bar's line of pull, moving at that same inch makes a massive relative difference, reducing that moment arm from, say, 5 inches to 4 inches. That's a 20% drop in demand.
So engaging the lats makes the lift significantly easier on the upper back.
Exactly, which makes it easier on the entire posterior chain, helps prevent rounding, and ultimately lets you lift a bit more weight safely.
Okay, I'm sold. What are some good cues to engage the lats?
Classic ones are put your shoulder blades in your back pockets, or pull the bar into your shins, almost like you're doing a straight arm pull down right before you lift. Another is point your elbows towards the wall behind you.
And training your lats helps. Heavy rows and stuff.
Absolutely. Stronger lats can perform this function better. Heavy rows, pull-ups, pull-downs, all beneficial. And engaging the lats properly also tends to lead to a more vertical, linear bar path, less wasted front-to-back movement.
Okay. What about shin angle at the start? Should they be perfectly vertical?
For conventional, it's largely personal preference and depends on your relative strength off the floor. Some start with shins vertical, others have a slight forward knee travel. Either way, your shins will usually become vertical within the first few inches of the pull as your knees extend.
And sumo. More important to be vertical.
Generally, yes. Vertical shins from the side view are highly preferred in sumo. Forward knee travel is less common and usually more detrimental because balance and maintaining that specific groove are so critical in sumo.
Okay, makes sense. Now, the main event. Lifting the damn bar, as this source puts it. Execution time.
Right. The core philosophy here is critical. Focus on what your body is doing, not just on the bar itself.
Don't just think pick the bar up.
Exactly. Yeah. That often leads to just yanking with your back. Instead, think about the movements of your body driving the lift.
So what cues should we focus on during the lift itself?
Okay, throughout the entire lift, a good general cue is chest up. Not arching excessively, but keeping the chest proud helps maintain spinal stiffness and engages the lats.
Okay, chest up. What about initiating the pull? First few inches.
For those crucial first 3 to 4 inches, the best cue is often drive the floor away or push the world away with your feet.
Like a leg press.
Kind of, yeah. It emphasizes using your legs to start the movement and helps prevent those hips from shooting up too early.
Okay, drive the floor away, then what? Once the bar's moving past the knees.
Once it's moving, especially after clearing the knees, the focus shifts almost entirely to powerful hip extension. The classic cues here are shoulders back and hips forward.
Explain those a bit more. Shoulders back.
Think about pulling your shoulder blades back and standing tall. If you struggle to feel it, maybe try some high bar good mornings, or deadlifts with a light resistance band looped around your upper back, pulling you forward. You'll have to actively pull your shoulders back against it.
Okay. And hips forward.
This is about driving your hips through aggressively. Think hip thrusts, or again, banded deadlifts, where a band is pulling your hips backward, forcing you to drive them forward powerfully to lock out.
So drive the floor away, then shoulders back, hips forward.
Pretty much sums it up. And you should prioritize the cue that addresses your biggest weakness. If your hips shoot up, focus on drive the floor away. If you struggle at lockout, focus on hips forward.
And always lift aggressively.
Perform every single rep, even warm-ups, as aggressively as possible while maintaining good form. Maximal intent. Research actually shows that lifting with maximal velocity intent leads to roughly twice the strength gains compared to lifting slowly.
Learn slow, practice the movement, then execute fast.
Exactly. For sumo, by the way, the cues are similar, but that drive the floor away cue tends to last a bit longer because it's more quad dominant off the floor. And you really need to keep actively ripping the floor apart until the bar clears your knees to keep those knees out and hips in position.
Got it. Okay, locking out, finishing the lift, what's the goal?
The goal is simple. Finish with your spine, hips, and knees straight, standing tall in a natural neutral position. That's it.
What should we avoid?
Avoid hyperextension. Leaning back excessively at the top, it's totally unnecessary, actually makes the lift harder on your low back, doesn't help, and can even get you disqualified in a powerlifting meet.
Right. Just stand up straight. What if someone struggles to lock out? Gets stuck near the top?
Often, it comes down to proper glute engagement. A lot of lifters finish the pull but still have a bit of an anterior pelvic tilt. Their lower back is still arched.
Haven't fully extended the hips.
Exactly. The fix is usually learning to consciously squeeze the glutes hard at the top to drive the hips forward into full extension. Think of it like a powerful, loaded pelvic thrust right at the end.
The thrills for that.
Practicing forceful lockouts with lighter loads helps. Cable pull-throughs are great for feeling that glute squeeze. Kettlebell swings, really focusing on that powerful hip snap and vertical finish with the glutes.
Okay, good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, lowering the bar. I have to admit, especially after a heavy single, I'm often guilty of just dropping it.
You and many others. It's tempting.
But the source argues strongly for lowering it under control, right? The eccentric phase. Why?
Absolutely. Controlled eccentrics are incredibly beneficial for like 4 main reasons. First, hypertrophy, muscle growth.
The lowering part builds muscle.
Yes. The eccentric phase, where your muscles are lengthening under tension, provides a really potent stimulus for muscle growth. If you just drop the bar, you're basically cutting out half the rep's potential for building muscle in your back and hips.
Okay, that's a big one.
Yeah.
What else? Second, safety. Especially as you get tired during a set, controlling the descent helps maintain good form, prevents your back from rounding suddenly, and reduces overall injury risk.
Makes sense. Less chance of losing position.
Third, just respect for the equipment. Powerlifting bars aren't really designed to be dropped repeatedly like Olympic weightlifting bumper plates and bars.
Yeah.
You can damage bars, chip plates, mess up the floor.
Good point. Gym etiquette, too.
And fourth, it actually preps your body better for the next rep if you're doing multiples. It utilizes the stretch shortening cycle.
Like loading a spring.
Exactly. Your muscles store elastic energy on the way down, which gives you a little extra boost for the next rep up. The author of the source material actually shared a story.
Yeah.
He said he made way faster deadlift progress personally when he was forced to train in commercial gyms where dropping weights was frowned upon, so he had to control the eccentrics. He felt it was a game changer for him.
Wow. Okay, I'm convinced. How do you lower it properly?
Yeah.
Basically the reverse of how you picked it up. Keep your chest up. Initiate by pushing your hips back until the bar clears your knees, then continue bending your knees, pressing through the floor until the bar makes light contact. Sit it down. Don't slam it.
Okay, control the descent. Got it. So let's say I'm trying to implement all this great technique, but I'm still hitting a wall, a sticking point. How do I figure out what's actually weak? Especially telling the difference between hip strength and back strength issues.
That's often the trickiest part. Assuming your technique is reasonably good up to, say, 70–80% of your max. Bad technique can definitely mask or mimic a weakness.
Right. Assume technique is decent. Now what?
Okay, for conventional deadlifts, your quads are almost never the limiting factor. Like we said, squat demands are way higher. Grip weakness is usually pretty obvious. The bar just slips.
So it's usually hips or back.
Yeah. And telling them apart is hard. Why? Because backgrounding can actually be your body compensating for weak hips.
How does that work?
If your back rounds, it effectively shortens the lever arm of your torso, which reduces the amount of torque your hips need to produce. So a rounding back doesn't always mean weak back. It could mean your hips couldn't handle the load with a straight back.
Okay, that's a crucial distinction. How do we test it?
If you're consistently missing at the floor, and it's not just trying too big a weight jump, that eccentric-only test is great. Try to lower, say, 90% to maybe 103% of your 1RM under perfect control.
Okay.
If your spine flexes significantly, rounds over involuntarily during that controlled negative, that points towards needing more back strength. Think exercises like back raises, heavy rows, maybe rack pulls above the knee.
And if the back stays straight, but you still fail?
If your back holds its position beautifully, but you just can't physically lift it concentrically after lowering it, that suggests it's more likely hip strength. Think RDLs, good mornings, hip thrusts.
What if you just can't control the eccentric at all?
Then your first priority is just practicing controlled eccentrics with lighter weights until you can. Also, don't rule out setup issues. Maybe stance needs tweaking, maybe pausing off the floor could help find a stronger position.
Okay, that's helpful for misses off the floor. What about missing at lockout?
Usually one of two scenarios. Scenario one, your hips are fully extended, but you're stuck bent over, can't re-extend your spine fully. Often happens if you pulls with a rounded back. That points to spinal erector weakness in that extended position. Front squats, high rack pulls can help.
Scenario 2.
Your spine is extended and straight, but you just can't push your hips through that last little bit to full lockout. That suggests hip extensors are weak near full extension. Hip thrusts, maybe kneeling squats with band resistance are great here.
Okay, that covers conventional weaknesses. What about sumo? Different sticking points.
Sumo's a bit different. Balance is more critical, so just misgrooving the lift can cause a miss more easily. If the bar barely moves off the floor, assuming good setup, it's often just overall strength needing improvement.
What about misses in the middle, mid-shin to knee?
A common sumo issue is the hips shooting up and back in the mid-range. The lifter sort of shifts into a semi-conventional position. This often happens if someone has really strong hamstrings relative to their glutes and quads. They're trying to get more hamstring involvement.
How do you fix that?
Usually means backing off the weight, really drilling good positioning, maybe doing bottom half pause deadlifts to strengthen that specific range while staying upright.
And sumo lockout issues.
It can be just a lack of strength specific to that top range.
Yeah.
So again, hip thrusts, rack pulls from knee height. But technical issues are also common culprits. Weight drifting too far forward.
Balance drills needed.
Right. Or maybe the stance is just too wide for their hip structure, causing impingement. Experimenting with slightly narrower stances or different toe angles, or using rack pulls to build top-end strength without the mobility constraint can help.
And spinal erectors in sumo. Less of a limiter.
Generally less limiting than in conventional because the torso is more upright. That said, it's still a good idea for sumo pullers to keep some conventional deadlifting or RDLs in their program to maintain overall back strength and resilience.
Good advice. What if the main issue seems to be mobility? Or just that persistent back rounding, even with lighter weights?
Yeah, often that comes down to either hip mobility limitations or just poor motor control, not knowing how to find or maintain a neutral spine position.
So how do you tackle that? Just stretch more?
Stretching can help, but targeted exercises are usually better. A fantastic approach is progressive range of motion. Start with rack pulls or block pulls. Set the bar high enough that you can maintain a perfectly neutral spine throughout the lift.
Start where you can succeed.
Exactly. Then, session by session or week by week, gradually lower the starting height of the bar by just a little bit, an inch or two.
Slowly increasing the range.
Yep. This does a few things. It gradually improves your hip mobility in the specific pattern needed. It builds strength at those specific joint angles. And it teaches your body spinal awareness under load. Patience is absolutely key here.
That sounds really effective. Anything else?
Romanian deadlifts, RDLs,
Yeah.
especially with a focus on the stretch and a pause at the bottom, are basically the gold standard for increasing deadlift-specific hip mobility and hamstring flexibility.
How should you do them for mobility?
Focus on a slow eccentric, like 3 to 5 seconds on the way down. Pause for 2 or 3 seconds at the bottom, really feeling that deep stretch in the hamstrings, but not pain. Don't force it into painful ranges. Try to go a tiny bit deeper each rep or set as you warm up. This builds mobility and control beautifully.
And rule out other causes of rounding, too.
Oh, yeah. Like we said, jerking the bar can cause rounding. Or simply setting up with the bar too far away from your shins initially. Fix the setup first.
Okay, great troubleshooting advice. Let's shift gears slightly and hit some frequently asked questions, some common nuances. The big one always comes up. Sumo versus conventional. How on earth do you choose?
The eternal question. There's really no easy, definitive answer. You see trends.
Like smaller lifters often prefer sumo.
Yeah, often. And larger lifters maybe trend towards conventional. But it's absolutely not a guarantee. It comes down to individual anatomy and strengths.
We talked about the demands.
Right. Hip demands are similar overall, but the type of hip movement is different. Conventional is more pure flexion extension. Sumo involves more abduction, moving legs apart. So unique hip socket structure matters a lot.
And quad demands.
Considerably higher in sumo. People who are naturally strong squatters often take well to sumo because they have strong quads.
Back demands.
About 10% higher spinal loading in conventional. So if you have a naturally strong back, conventional might feel better. If your back is maybe a weak point but you have strong legs, sumo might be more forgiving.
So what's the recommendation?
Honestly, the best advice is usually to spend some real time, like 6 to 12 months, seriously training both styles. See which one feels stronger, progresses better, and causes fewer aches and pains for you.
And they help each other anyway, right?
Exactly. They complement each other really well in a training program. A conventional lifter might use sumo occasionally to give their lower back a break. A sumo lifter might use conventional or RDLs to build more overall back strength or manage hip fatigue. Knowing both is ideal.
Okay, good practical advice. Quick hits, chalk and baby powder, necessary.
Chalk is almost always a good idea for grip. Increases friction, absorbs sweat. Liquid chalk is often preferred by gyms if they dislike powder mess. Baby powder is different. It decreases friction.
So you put that on your thighs?
Yeah, on your thighs to help the bar slide up easier during lockout. You definitely don't want it on your hands. It's typically only used for meet attempts, not regular training.
Gotcha. Perfectly vertical shin at the start mandatory.
Nope. As we said, depends on your leverages and strengths. Shins will usually move towards vertical shortly after you initiate the pull anyway. Suno benefits more from starting vertical, though.
Okay. Ramping versus scooping. What's that? Sounds like cheating.
It's a specific technique mainly for conventional lockout issues. It's not the same as hitching, which is illegal. Ramping is where, after the bar clears your knees, you actively drive your knees forward under the bar.
Rebending the knees.
A little, yeah. While simultaneously extending your hips, so the bar essentially slides up your thighs. It has to be one fluid motion. It reduces hip and back demands right at the top and increases friction against the thighs.
Risky in competition.
Can be. It's a judge's call, whether it was one fluid motion or a disallowed hitch. Not something to rely on heavily, maybe more of a last resort technique.
Okay. Resetting between reps versus touch and go. Which is better?
Depends on the goal. Resetting each rep, coming to a dead stop, re-bracing, is excellent for practicing your setup consistency, especially important if your form tends to break down on the first rep of a set or on heavy singles.
And touch and go.
Touch and go. Light tap on the floor, immediately go into the next rep. Allows for higher training volume, potentially faster strength gains for some due to the stretch reflex. It also forces you to maintain core tension throughout the set. Downside. It can sometimes lead to inflated rep max calculator estimates because the first rep is harder than subsequent ones.
So, the verdict.
Choose whichever method allows you to maintain consistent, high-quality form from rep to rep. If touch and go gets sloppy, reset. If resetting feels inefficient and form is solid, touch and go might be fine.
Makes sense. Head position, look up, look down, neutral, doesn't matter.
Generally, not that much. It's mostly personal preference. Looking up slightly, cervical extension, can sometimes help cue spinal extension and make lockout feel easier for some people. Looking down or keeping the head neutral aligns the neck with the spine, which might feel easier off the floor for others.
What about neck strain risk from looking up? The source material actually states the risk is unbelievably low. It's very rare to strain your neck deadlifting just by looking up slightly. So experiment. Find what feels strongest and most comfortable for you.
Okay, good to know. Improving grip strength, a common issue. What actually works best? Those hand grippers.
Probably not hand grippers. They train crushing grip, but the deadlift requires support grip, basically. Isometric endurance, just holding on. Fat bars are also less specific.
So what is specific and effective?
The single best thing is probably timed deadlift holds. Load up a bar, ideally with the grip you use for deadlifting, mixed or hook. Pick a weight you can hold for maybe 15-20 seconds.
And just stand there holding it?
Yep. Do 3-4 sets, maybe 2-3 times a week after your main deadlift work. It directly trains the exact strength needed.
Any other good options?
Sure. Timed hangs from a pull-up bar are great.
Yeah.
One-handed barbell holds, like a suitcase deadlift hold. Doing things like shrugs, rows, or even lighter deadlifts with a double overhand grip until your grip fails. Farmer's walks are also fantastic for grip endurance.
Okay, timed holds sound like the most direct approach. Now, structuring deadlift training. It's often called finicky. Why is that, and what should listeners know?
It is finicky, highly individual. It taxes the nervous system and the lower back significantly. General guidelines. Start with maybe half to 2/3 the volume, sets X reps, you use for squats.
Lower volume than squats.
Typically, yes. But here's the interesting part. Deadlifts seem to respond well to high frequency of the general hinge pattern, things like back raises, RDLs, kettlebell swings, maybe 3+ times per week. But low frequency of actual heavy deadlifting from the floor.
How low frequency?
For probably 50% of people, maybe even more, pulling heavy from the floor only once per week is optimal.
Really? Only once a week?
For maximal effort pulls, often yes. Some people, especially those well-suited structurally or maybe sumo pullers who are less back limited, can handle more volume or frequency. But people whose back strength is the limiting factor tend to get worn down very easily by frequent heavy deads.
And technique matters for volume tolerance.
Absolutely. Better, more efficient technique is less taxing, allows for more volume. Also, critically, don't try to deadlift heavy if your hips or back are already significantly fatigued from other training. Better to push the session back a day or two.
So the key is be conservative.
Be conservative, listen to your body, prioritize building general back strength and resilience through accessory work, and don't overdo the heavy pulls from the floor.
Got it. What about hip height in the setup? People worry, are my hips too high, too low?
Honestly, your starting hip height is mostly dictated by your body's geometry. Your limb lengths, arm, tibia, femur, and your torso length.
So it's just anatomy?
Largely, yes.
Mhm.
Longer arms or torso relative to legs. Your hips will naturally sit lower. Longer legs, especially femurs, relative to torso arms. Your hips will naturally start higher. Most complaints about hips being too high or too low are just observing natural variations based on individual build. You generally can't force your hips much lower or higher than where your structure wants them to be in an efficient starting position.
Okay, stop worrying about matching some ideal picture and find your best start position.
Exactly. Now, let's revisit spinal flexion and hip extension demands. You mentioned the backgrounding can compensate for weak hips.
Yeah, that compensatory loop. Can you elaborate?
Right. When your spine flexes, it shortens the effective length of your torso lever. This reduces the distance between your hips and the bar's line of pull, thereby reducing the torque demand on your hip extensors.
So the back takes over some of the work the hips couldn't do.
In a sense, yes. It allows you to complete the lift even if your hips weren't quite strong enough to do it with a perfectly rigid spine. So if your spine only flexes right at the very top end, like 90–95% plus of your max, it's quite likely it's compensating for maximal hip effort.
And if it flexes earlier with lighter weights?
If it flexes significantly below 90%, say at 80%, it's much more likely indicative of actual spinal erector weakness. Your back muscles just aren't strong enough to hold the position, even when your hips could potentially produce the force.
Okay, that's a useful heuristic, 90% threshold.
Yeah, think about it like squatting. You might be able to quarter squat 110% of your max, right? Your legs are strong enough. But you fail a full squat at 100% because your core or back can't maintain position in the hole. Same idea. You can finish a deadlift even if your erectors couldn't hold that isometric position perfectly if your hips are strong enough to overcome the slightly less efficient flexed position.
Right, but the risks. Spinal flexion. This is maybe the most debated topic in lifting. Is it automatically bad, going to cause injury?
It's hugely debated, and the answer is nuanced. No, spinal flexion during a deadlift is not automatically crippling or guaranteed to cause injury. Human tissue is adaptable. People lift with flexed spines for years without issue. Sometimes.
But it's not risk-free.
Definitely not risk-free. There's survivor bias. Flexion does increase compressive and shear forces on the spinal discs and ligaments, especially towards the end range of motion. A neutral spine isn't one single point. It's a range. High-level lifters often flex, but usually within that neutral range, not typically into full end range flexion. And lumbar, lower back flexion, is generally considered riskier than thoracic upper back flexion.
So the recommendation, especially for the average listener, the hobbyist lifter.
For the hobbyist lifter, the source strongly suggests sticking to a neutral spine as much as possible. Fight to maintain it. There's really no tangible payoff that outweighs the potential increased long-term risk.
And for a competitor trying to lift the absolute maximum.
For a competitor, some degree of flexion, if it stays within their body's neutral range and allows them to lift significantly more, maybe 5% benefit, might be deemed an acceptable risk for them. But even then, the recommendation is to always fight for extension in training, build strength in good positions, and maybe limit the number of sets performed with intentional flexion just to hone the motor skill for competition attempts.
Okay, a very sensible risk-aware approach. Let's broaden out again. We've talked conventional and sumo, but there are tons of deadlift variations. Can you give us a rapid-fire overview of the main ones and what they're uniquely good for, like building that deadlift toolkit?
Sure, let's run through them. Conventional and sumo. We've covered these differing back-wide demands, stance width, the main lifts, block rack pulls, starting with the bar elevated on blocks or rack pins. Good for overloading the top part of the lift, targeting lockout strength, and can spare the lower back slightly. Blocks are generally better than pins. Deficit deadlifts. You stand on a small platform, increasing the range of motion. Brutal. Great for building strength off the floor if that's your weak point. Romanian deadlifts, RDLs. Start from the top, lower with minimal knee bend. Focus on hamstring stretch and hip hinge. Excellent hamstring glute builder. Less stressful on the low back than conventional from the floor. Stiff-legged deadlifts, similar to RDLs but usually performed from the floor, requiring more hip mobility. Also very hamstring glute focused. Trap bar, hex bar, deadlifts. Uses a neutral grip, bar path is different. Generally more knee dominant, less hip back dominant than straight bar. Allows higher peak force, power, velocity. Often a preferable variation for athletes or general fitness folks not competing in powerlifting. Deadlifts with bands. Bands attached add accommodating resistance, gets harder at the top. Builds lockout strength and explosiveness. Deadlifts with chains. Similar idea to bands. Loading increases as chains lift off the floor, but the effect is less dramatic. Good for lockout work. Reverse band deadlifts. Bands attached overhead assist the lift, making it easier off the floor. Good for feeling heavier weights in your hands, overloading the lockout, confidence building. Pause deadlifts. Pausing at specific points, feasible just off floor, at knee. Fantastic teaching tool for improving balance, position, and control through sticking points. Deadlift to knee height, halts. Pulling only to the knee, then lowering. Builds strength and skill through that often weakest initial part of the range, generates less overall fatigue than full reps. Snatch grip deadlift, using a very wide grip like in the Olympic snatch, massively increases range of motion. Great overall back and leg accessory, really hammers the start position and upper back. Single leg deadlift RDL, usually with dumbbells or kettlebells, excellent for working hip stabilizers, abductors, rotators, improving balance, addressing imbalances, and promoting general hip health.
Wow, that's quite a toolbox. Okay, for someone who's maybe a complete beginner or needs to relearn the movement properly, how should they progress towards doing a straight bar deadlift from the floor?
Good question. Start by just ingraining the basic hip hinge pattern. Simple drills like standing facing away from a wall, pushing hips back to touch it without bending knees much, can load this lightly, holding a weight to the sternum.
Okay, master the hinge first.
Yep. Then move to kettlebell or dumbbell deadlifts, where the weight is between your feet. This is often easier to learn initially than a barbell out front.
Then the bar.
From there, you have a couple of paths. For non-powerlifters, progressing to the trap bar deadlift might be easier to learn, arguably safer for many. If the goal is straight bar powerlifting, then progressing from kettlebells to Romanian deadlifts, learning controlled hinge with the bar, is a great step before attempting full deadlifts from the floor.
And if they still struggle with mobility or control for the floor pull?
Then use that progressive range of motion method we talked about. Start with a rack or block, pulls from a height they can do perfectly, and slowly, patiently lower the height over time.
Excellent progression. Last question. Lifting straps, we mentioned them earlier. When should someone use them? Is there a downside? Are they cheating?
Okay, first off, there's zero evidence that using straps increases injury risk. Let's dispel that myth. Whether to use them depends on your goals.
Powerlifters versus everyone else.
Pretty much. If you compete in powerlifting, you obviously need to be able to deadlift without straps in competition, so you'll need some training without them to build grip strength specifically.
But for non-powerlifters, general strength, bodybuilding?
Use them as desired. Seriously. There are significant advantages.
Like what?
They protect your hands, prevent painful torn calluses, reduce grip discomfort, which means grip issues are less likely to interrupt your training or limit how hard you can work.
And the big one.
They ensure your grip doesn't become the limiting factor for training your back and hips. Your posterior chain muscles are much stronger than your grip muscles. Straps allow you to actually train those primary movers to their potential, closer to failure, without your hands giving out first. This can lead to better strength and hypertrophy gains in the muscles you're actually trying to target with the deadlift. So no, they're not cheating unless you're practicing for a comp that disallows them. They're a tool.
That's a great way to put it. Wow. Okay, that was a truly comprehensive deep dive. We've covered an incredible amount of ground.
We really did.
From the basic physics and anatomy that, govern the whole movement, all the way through the nitty-gritty of technique, troubleshooting common problems, and that huge array of variations.
Yeah, it's clear the deadlift is way more than just grabbing a bar and yanking it.
So much more. It's complex, challenging, but honestly, incredibly rewarding when you start to understand it better.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that despite all the science, all the biomechanics, all the technique cues we've discussed, the deadlift ultimately remains deeply personal.
How so?
Because your unique body, right, with your specific limb lengths, your hip structure, your muscle attachments, that's always going to dictate your optimal approach, your best stance, your ideal hip height.
So it's not just applying universal rules.
Not entirely. The journey to mastering the deadlift isn't just about learning those rules. It's also about listening to your own body, experimenting and discovering what truly makes you strong and allows you to lift safely and effectively.
That's a fantastic final thought. So, to everyone listening, take these insights, apply them to your own training if you deadlift, experiment safely, and keep exploring your own movement potential. We really hope this deep dive has armed you with some incredible knowledge to become truly well-informed about this amazing, challenging, yet really rewarding lift.